Folks, how's it going? This is Bill again. Well, we're off on another trek. We're headed to the airport, flying a big bird to go get a plane, bring it back. Stay tuned. This should be a good one. Hey folks, how's it going? This is Bill. I'm in Iowa and I'm getting ready to open up this hangar behind me and fly an 80-year-old Aeronca Chief down to Texas. So come along, this should be a fun trip. Okay, so start off the morning by unfolding this erector set of a hangar from get the plane out. This, I assume, is probably one of the original T hangars on the airport. It's on the northwest side. It's actually in a grass taxiway. It's not a paved taxiway to get to it. I assume this is one of the original buildings or whatever of the Ames Airport when it was first put in back in the day. So it's kind of a ramshackle deal. Probably a mail order hangar out of Chicago or something back in the 40s or whenever it was. But it's a kind of a big accordion doors and all sorts of things that are kind of worn out 30-40 years ago, but we're getting it together. Big chunk of wood you got to get away, and that thing keeps the raccoons and the big, I don't know, wolverines out of the building, whatever grows up in Ames, Iowa. So that's what's going on there. Roll the plane out, and again, back and forth, check, make sure we don't scrape anything. We don't want to trade any paint, don't want to tear anything up. So get it out, and this will be the last time this airplane sees this hangar. So the owner was selling the airplane. I think he was selling his other airplanes. He had some medical issues. So the folks I was doing this for down in Texas ended up buying it, and we're helping them out by flying this thing down to Texas. So that's what's going on there. And yeah, the doors are kind of sketch, kind of worn out. There's lots of pins and brackets and doodads inside and all that. The other thing I'm doing too, you don't really see it, but I'm also tying a lanyard to the hangar, one of the hangar fixtures in the bottom there, and then I tied that up to the back of the airplane so that I could get it started. Since it's we're prop starting it, or hand propping it, getting that going. So that's kind of what we're doing there, and getting things going there. But that's what all that's about. Getting the doors folded up and everything. So we're putting all that stuff back together, because as soon as we get done with this, we're heading south. We'll never take my collar off my dog there. Never be back here. So the first leg's from Ames, Iowa to Maryville, Missouri. I think it's northwestern Missouri Airport, something like that. I don't have the map with me, we'll talk about that later maybe. But got the airplane running. I wanted to didn't start the cameras until I got the plane running. Wasn't sure how long that was going to take first time up, and it busted off quite nicely, so it worked out pretty well. Untying the little lanyard from the tail getting that all undone. So getting ready to go. That's kind of I consider it a mandatory piece of equipment. It's a piece of about 2,500 pound test paracord, and keep that in the baggage compartment. Their little baggage bin behind the seat. So bring that with me, and I tie down, especially on this plane and any other plane that I hand prop. I tie the tail down. Now, I've had some folks say, well, it takes a lot, it's a pain in the butt to do. Well, yeah, it might take you 5 minutes to tie it or untie it, but it's going to take you 2 years to rebuild it after it goes into a hangar or something. So it's, I think it's time well spent. So getting the cabin all set up, getting everything going. As I said, I kind of had it packed up, and now I'm kind of trying to actually get everything going here. Rolling out. The radio I've got is a handheld, so that's my headphones going into that. I don't have an intercom, and as a result, you won't hear me on the intercom. You won't hear any stuff on the intercom. Sliding windows, gotta love that. And we're going from this area here over on the west side, and then we're going to taxi over to the taxiway up in the north end there. So we're just kind of trucking along, kind of getting used to how it's rolling, checking the brakes. These are mechanical brakes. They're not hydraulic brakes, so they're not as effective as a hydraulic brake. So you just kind of have to anticipate that, know that you're not going to have 110% super duper positive brakes. So we just don't go too fast, and we don't have to worry about having to tromp on the brakes and that kind of stuff. Airplane is actually a pretty nice little airplane. In pretty good shape. It needs a little touch up on some paint, but short of that, it's a pretty clean airplane. Older restoration, probably 20-30 years ago, something like that. And here we are, taxiing by the beans, heading to the active. Not a towered airport, so we're up there at the stop taxi line at 13. And again, rolled up there. And if anybody jumps my stuff about being on the stop, or on the black and yellow paint on the stop taxi line, I did that to keep my tail wheel out of the mud. You can see the behind the plane. I don't know if you can see that back there, but there's just enough room to park the plane, so that's the way that is. Nobody really out there. I think there was a King Air that took off just a few minutes before we got out there, so we did a run up, got everything going. Now the one thing, and I think I say this toward the end, we had the GoPros on there. You'll see the takeoffs, but you won't see the landings. The reason is our GoPro cameras, the way I've got them rigged up, they just have their internal batteries. So all we've got is about an hour's worth of battery in it. It's plenty of memory, but just about an hour's worth of battery. This is kind of cool. You see the vapor coming off the propeller, kind of a helix. That's kind of cool. You don't see that from the cockpit, but it's kind of cool. So you can tell it's got it's just a heavy dew morning is all it is, really. So it's actually kind of nice. The sun's coming out, cooking things, clearing up. And we're, as I said, we're moseying on 13. We could have taken the big runway, but 13 was still pretty generous as far as having enough room for us. So that worked out real well. 13 was 3,500 feet, so that's fine. And then there's plenty of flatness all around, so it worked out pretty well. And no wind, so that's why we took 13. Wind for the trip, predominantly in the Midwest. Central part of the country is all out of the south, so because there was not a lick of wind, we just ended up taking 13 and bombing out. And you can see it's beautiful clearness, a lot of clear space. So if we had any engine problems and that kind of stuff, we would have had plenty of opportunity. Now this is kind of funny. You can see me thundering along here. You can also see the vehicle on the highway, and you can see how much I'm not gaining on it. Well, that's now I'm climbing, and I'm climbing a couple hundred feet a minute, something like that. But you can also see that I'm not really gaining on that car at all, or whatever's down there. So the best we did was about sometimes I was doing 55 knots, sometimes I was doing 60 knots, but not really able to get a bunch of headway. We tried going some higher levels, doing 2,500 foot, went up to 4,500 foot, and it was just wind on the nose, so we ended up going down about 2,500 foot for the majority of the trip. Had less headwind, and it's just a slow airplane. That's just the way it is. So we figured if we did 60 knots, that's great. So that's kind of the way it is. You can see again here, we're not overtaking any cars, which is kind of frustrating, but then again, kind of neat. You can kind of wave to cars as they pass you. So it's all about flight time, right? So it's all about flight time. So, and here we are. Looks like maybe we are gaining on these guys a little bit, but really beautiful, beautiful sun, beautiful morning. As I said, big front had passed. There's a front down in Texas as we're taking off. We know that. What we're hoping to do is see if that front will break, and then we can maybe slide through a break in the front. But right now we're just gonna kind of mosey along, and we know that we can get down to central Oklahoma easily, no problem weather-wise. So it's kind of just take what we can. And then we've got this little cool, so I kind of slid the windows closed. You'll see me later. You see my hand sticking out of the window. It's got kind of warm. So, because again, we're not real high. It's summertime, but it is just beautiful to look at the lakes, the various and sundry places. Just really, really kind of beautiful, beautiful stuff. So it's kind of neat. So we're just moseying along. $82 miles an hour indicated, banging it, and we're 3,500 feet. We tried climbing. That was on a climb. It just didn't pan out, so we ended up coming down. This is getting down toward the Des Moines area, skirting around the west side of the Des Moines area, back to suburbia and all that. But again, you can see we're quite a bit higher now, but that didn't really help us out. So we ended up going a bit lower on the rest of the trip. You'll see the perspective from here, probably from our next stop, it'll be quite a bit lower. So that's the trip there. Next stop was Maryville, and then we're going to go to Emporia. Now, I had the plane ready to start, and then had a crop duster come in to the pump, so I moved it out of the way, retied it down, and it was a little warm, so it was being ornery. So I'm doing the 20 blades backward, throttle open, mixture off. Actually, there is no mixture on this thing. And then again, the plane is tied down, and that's just basically to clear the engine out, get fresh air into it and all that. Now, once the propeller, as far as I'm concerned, goes hot, I do not go around the front of the airplane. That's just me. So now I'm rolling the plane up to tighten the rope up, make sure the rope's tight. I've made the ignition hot. I've set the throttle and put the friction on the throttle. And so then once I do that, I declare the engine hot. I walk around the back of the plane. I don't go around the front of the plane. So I'm just, that's me. That's what I was taught. I don't like going around the front of the plane anytime there's possibility of the engine busting off. Then I come in here, double check, and then I hold on to the A-pillar. Make sure I personally like to hang on to a piece of the airplane anytime the engine's hot or running. And then I kind of crawl out the lift strut, dodge the aileron bell crank, which will hit your head quite nicely on this plane. Go around the back, and now I've got to pull the plane back a little bit and untie it and get it unhooked from the tail wheel, get all that stuff done, and then end up loading up, getting climbing in. Now this airport doesn't have a parallel taxiway, so what you have to do is you have to back taxi on the main runway. Not a thing. Just calling CTAF, see if anyone's out there. The only folks who are out there was as I said, was a crop duster that came in. In fact, I think they were waiting for a loadout because they never shut down. They just sat there idling, and then I think they were waiting for their load truck to come in and get them, send them off. So they were doing their thing. But very nice little airport, very friendly folks. If you need to stop on the way anywhere, I would highly recommend it. Very nice runway, 4,600 foot runway, 1.4. very nice place. The the other thing on the, well, you see the plane just rolling a little bit. That's at idle, so you just kind of, you know, I've disconnected, but I'm also walking around hanging on to it the whole time. And then make sure I get in the plane, hang on to things so I don't fall out and leave my foot in there and get drug along like an old cowboy. So, getting that done. But if you look at the brake, the wheels, it's kind of got that kind of puckered look to it. Those are what they call shin brakes, S-H-I-N-N. They're old-timey mechanical brakes. They're on Taylorcrafts. They're on Aeroncas, I think, some other aircraft. They're mechanical drum brakes. These actually work quite well. I must say these work quite well, but they are somewhat antiquated by today's standards. So you just have to you have to keep after them and all that. Keep them in good shape. Now the other thing you might have noticed, is I moved the camera below the lift strut. So again, I got the camera down below, and the reason is not this leg. This leg will be going down to going to Emporia, but the trip after Emporia, the next leg after Emporia, I wanted to make sure that I had more visibility of things going under my belly. So, as I said, it's move the camera around. I only have one camera. I'm not running a bunch of cameras. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I've got a camera in the cockpit that I'm using. Also, occasionally, if I see something cool, I use my phone. So we're back taxiing here on runway 14, and then we're going to go down to the Hammerhead, spin around, and take off to the south. Winds real light out of the south, so not much for crosswind, but still mindful of it. So yeah, I'm not running a bunch of cameras. The other thing I'm not running, and I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, we don't have an intercom system, so I don't have voiceover on the radio. I'm not recording anything on the radio. The only time I'm using the radio, again, is when I get close to the pattern. I don't have electric system, so I don't have ADS-B. That's about it. So I've got basically my ForeFlight on my phone and my iPad, and that's it. That's all the electronics in the airplane, all the guidance. So, trucking along. So this is leaving out of Murrayville. You can see I use all the runway. That's just what I do. Airplanes did rather well. This is full. I would say fully loaded. It's myself. I'm a good 250 pounds. Plus all my gear and all that stuff, and we still only used probably a little bit less than 500 feet taken off. So, and that's on an original 65 horsepower airplane. Probably about, I don't know, 75 degrees Fahrenheit out at this time. There's the ramp at Maryville. Nice big ramp, good sized, generous ramp. A couple ag planes there. There's a terminal, that tall building is a terminal, very nice little terminal. But they've got Jet A, 100 low lead, anything you need, that kind of stuff. So works out real well. Again, the crops, a little bit different here down in northern Missouri, a little bit different, but it's a little more terrain, a little more hilly, so you don't see the big expanses as you did in Iowa. Smaller farms, different colored crops, but again, very pretty from there, all the different patterns. And again, we are, we're trucking along at about 2,500 feet. Later in the trip, we did go a little bit lower, only because we had some wind and things like that we just were trying to dodge. This picture here, you see there is a handheld GPS on the panel. That was actually from the prior owner. It was a hunting GPS and really of no use to us. We had a couple little puffball clouds going by. Doesn't really show it from this view, but off to the left or the east, there was a string of stuff out about 15-20 miles that we were sliding down the west side of. Off to the east, there was really nothing. It was kind of neat to see some of the stuff out there, the various windmill farms and that kind of stuff. They're popping up all over. I hate them, but they are kind of pretty and kind of mesmerizing. And they come and go. They're all over the country. But some of these farms and some of the topography is just so pretty. Things you don't get to see when you're up at 10 or 20,000 feet. It is quite beautiful, and some of the ranches and farms, various and sundry things out there are really pretty cool. There's another wind farm, really kind of neat place, but just really pretty. Some big industrial farms, small farms, just small town USA. Very, very pretty. Some of the rivers you see are just really interesting. And then you also see how the roads follow the rivers, the roads follow the railroads. You'll see old railroad tracks, all sorts of stuff. Here we are banging it along at 60 miles an hour. So it's just trucking along. And just plucking along, pluck, pluck, pluck. Another thing that's really amazing, it's just hard to envision in some areas of the country or other places of the world, is long, straight roads. This one actually has a little bit of wave in it because of a river going along, but you'll see some roads that just go for what appears to be miles and miles and miles. The other thing you'll see is roads that go along section lines, so they'll go one direction for a mile, take a turn for a mile, take a turn for a mile, so it's kind of interesting to see that. The colors of the different crops, you can even see from the air. You can understand why some farmers do fly. You can see the health of the crops and how they're doing from the air. Here's another huge long road just going on forever. There's our shadow in the back just chugging along, but just really pretty looking out the window. And now we're going from, as I said, we're going from Missouri down to, we just nipped the corner of Missouri, but we're heading down toward Emporia, Kansas. So you're going to see the crops change, things of that nature kind of change. So it's pretty neat to see. Okay, now we made it to Emporia. Took a lunch break in Emporia and we're heading to Stillwater. So Emporia was a fabulous place to stop. Super folks at the ramp. They just took care of us, no problem. Helped us out. They have a couple crew cars. Ended up going into town, grabbing a burger. That was awesome. There's a school in town, a university, I believe. It was just a really super place. Everybody was just tripping over themselves to be nice. Unfortunately, when I landed there, I didn't realize they had a big grass runway. Wasn't looking at that. I was just sticking to paved runways. So Emporia had a nice runway 1-2, 5,000 foot. So I just went for that. And then again, our next stop is Stillwater. 135 nautical miles. For this airplane, that's going to be about the longest legs we're going to do. So it's on this one, it's I'm really watching my clock on this one to make sure that I don't get into any kind of fuel switch situations. Stay well within my 30-minute reserve. So I was really keeping an eye on this. So what we did on this one, this is kind of a fun deal. On one of my prior videos, if you might have watched it, I did a deal on Knute Rockne. And my son and I tried to get out to the memorial. We stopped at Cottonwood Falls, talked with the folks out there at the museum. They were just absolutely super people. But was not able to get out to where the memorial is, out in the middle of this piece of private property. There's one of our ramp buddies, and we were sitting there at the FBO. Neat pursuit lunch wagon. And then we went to Jay's Carryout in Emporia. 2 thumbs up to them. Great place, and you get a little ice cream when you're done. So definitely worth stopping in Emporia if you're on a trip. Definitely worth it. So anyway, back to my story on the prior episode. We tried to get out to the Knute Rockne Crash Site Memorial, which is down by a little town or a little village or settlement of Bazaar, Kansas. Yeah, here's the runway that we're heading out on. But we could not get out to the property. It's a private ranch. Couldn't get out there. You can't see it from the highway. It's quite a ways. It's a mile or two inside of the working ranch. So a little bit frustrating, but we thought, well, what the heck? Might as well try to see if we can maybe take a look at it. On this trip, I realized that, hey, wait a minute. I'm going past that area. So if I do a little bit of a diversion, then I can... what I can do is probably slide over there and take a look at it from the sky. So what I did is I said, okay, I'll do that. I had the GPS coordinates of it as best I could derive, and then I said, well, what I'll do is I'll give myself 10 minutes over the target, and then I'll have to, that's as much as I'm going to have. Shouldn't take me more than a minute or two to find it because I've got the GPS coordinates. So that's my plan from here is we're going to head down there, taking off on runway 19. Yeah, Emporia was plenty of runway, 5,000 foot, I believe. So worked out real well. Very nice runway. All the runways we landed at were in very good shape, so no questions about that at all. They were all very well kept. Here we go, 5,000 foot. Give it the beans, and then top of the numbers, the airplane's getting light. Then just keep it going and then fly it off. Here we are in the air, and then boom, the 1,000-foot markers go under. So I think we're getting off about 450, 500 feet, which is probably about right for this thing there. Now that tire, I'll telling myself that tire should have probably been spinning a little more. So I may have had my heel. These are heel brakes, they're awkward, just like the Cub or some of the older Plains Champs. But I may have had my bottom of my foot dragging a little bit on the brake. So normally that wheel on some of the other takeoffs, you might see that wheel spinning. There's the ramp area. There's that grass runway. Really nice grass runway. So neat stuff. So now instead of going down south, if you notice, I'm bugging out to the southwest a bit and heading out that direction. So that's where we're headed to right now. Is we're headed to a little settlement of Bazaar, south of Cottonwood Falls, and north of, I believe it's Matfield Green. And that is where, back in 1931, Knute Rockne met his end along with everyone else on the United flight. So now we've been trucking along. We're coming in, and Kansas has different crops. So this is some different crops, smaller farms. You'll see cattle fields or cattle operations. So more beef operations, and then smaller row crop type farms. So this is kind of neat. We're coming off that's the main county road that heads down south to the town of Cassidy. I've got a land marked out by those 2 trees there. That's looks like a paving test area. So I know exactly where I am. I know exactly where the marker should be. Now, to my defense, if you can see, there's some clouds going over, so it kind of camouflaged where I was headed. So what I'm doing here for you folks is I'm showing you this is all going to be full time. Is I'm going over, and it's I know exactly, as I said, I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm not seeing it. So I don't know what's going on. This is perfect. The neat thing about this area here is it's not big prairie grass. This is just kind of scrub. It's great for cattle operations, very short grass, but you can pretty much land anywhere out in this area. It's again, cattle operations. This part of Kansas is just one big Piper Cub landing strip. It's kind of cool. So we're looking around. I went to where I thought it was, so I figured, well, Now, also to my defense, I'm looking for something I think in my head is a big white marble something about the size of, I don't know, maybe the Washington Monument. I'm looking for something quite prominent, quite big, quite majestic. Because I'd never seen this thing. I'd seen it in some magazines and some, or not magazines, and some historical photographs and things of that nature. So I kind of think I know what I'm looking for, but I'm not sure now. I see a lot of stock tanks for cattle, things of that nature. The hills are, as I said, some are dark, some are bright. And I'm wondering, where the heck is this thing? This thing should be big. So I'm kind of working the perimeter of this one area. I would say probably about area about 2 miles by 2 miles that I know it is within. So kind of going back to my initial point, the county road there, because I know that as I come in a gate, I go here, I go this way, I go through a creek. I've done this, I've rehearsed this in my head a bunch of times. This thing should be right in front of my eye. There's no reason why I shouldn't be seeing this thing. I'm out scanning the horizon. I'm looking for every little bump in the road, every little blip. So I'm wondering where is this thing? This thing's got to be right here. It's got to be, I've got to be flying right over it. Something's goofy. Anyway, I'm trucking along, and as I'm flying around, again, I'm very mindful of my time. I've put a time hack on how long I can wander around out here. And then I don't realize, but I've flown right over it. You can see right under the tire there. But unbeknownst to me, I've flown right over it, which is the worst place to see. And it's not quite the Washington Monument, as you would expect. So now I said, okay, I'm pretty sure I know I'm on top. I've got to be on top of it, or somewhere very close to here. So now I'm just doing kind of a sweeping grid pattern, about a half mile sweep from my prior path, and just kind of figure I'll crop dust it back and forth, and I'll either confirm it or I'll just walk away and try it some other day. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just kind of going out. I know that I'm not this far out on some of the stuff. Now, when you're looking at Google Maps, you don't really have any sense for the depressions or the elevations of the land. So this is looking, while it's looking familiar, it's looking kind of unfamiliar because it's undulating and all that. So I'm not really 100% sure of exactly where I am, because I'm not looking straight down from a mile or 2 or 3. So we're just kind of working the fence line, so to speak, of the area, looking out the window, coming back, reestablishing, and getting it set up again. There's the county road one more time, so we're going back south again, and we're sweeping it. Looking south, we're headed kind of southwest, headed more westish now. Keep our altitude at a safe altitude. This is kind of a landmark, this house here. So we're coming around here. Again, we're trying to figure out where exactly everything is. We're getting more familiar with the area. We know where it isn't, which is reduces the amount of places it can be. And where I'm flying, I'm scanning. The wind actually is beating the heck out of me. The wind has come up out of the south, and it's been bouncing me around quite a bit. So it's kind of been frustrating to that end, the amount of wind that we're getting. So still flying around this pasture, wondering why this thing isn't in the pasture that I think it should be in, because it just should be there, because I know everything and I've researched this a zillion times. However, that's the thing, is when you get in the air and you're flying, it all changes. Everything changes. So we did another sweep over that landmark, that E on the ground, and then coming over this creek, I thought, well, maybe there's a creek. Remember the folks at the museum saying you had to drive through a creek, so maybe that's the creek. Maybe it's not the other creek, it could be that creek. So I was kind of wondering, then all of a sudden out of the window I spied it. It's like, aha, there we go. You can see I did the kick turn, and coming around, it's like, I got you. So now that I figured out what we have. I identified it. However, I'm kind of out of position. So there it is. Boom. There's the monument where Knute Rockne met his fate. United Airlines, 1931. So now I've got I've got a camera inside the plane on standby. I'm hoping, because I can't see this camera, I'm hoping this one's still recording. So coming around and setting up for a nice little photo pass, and all I'm going to do is one pass off the left side, and I'm visualizing the belly of the airplane and hoping that when we go by we can see it, and then at the same time I'm just hanging my camera out of the window, just off the edge of the window, while I'm flying the plane. There it is. Boom. There's the monument. Here's a slow-mo pass off my camera that I had hanging out. Boom. There it is. We're actually looking at the back side of the monument. It faces to the west. The other side faces east. It has all the inscriptions on it. Okay, so now we're climbing out from that area, and we're heading south. The one thing you notice is that the land here is completely different from Iowa or Missouri. This particular part of Kansas is quite arid, just not set up for crops, more so for grazing. So this particular part of Kansas is quite big for cattle farms and all that. And it's not that much different from Emporia. It's only about 40 miles or so south of Emporia, which is a lot of other crops. So the land areas are kind of changing one side of the road to the other almost. And it just depends on how the ranchers and folks are running it. You can see one side of this road is green, the other side is brown. Probably the function of grazing and ranch management. So a lot of different ways of doing things. We're coming up upon the town of Cassidy, which is just south of Matfield Green. Up on the highway there at Matfield Green, there is a a display to Knute Rockne and all that. So there's that's right there on the interstate. The north-south road to the tail of the airplane that heads up to Cottonwood Falls, where the museum is. But this is the town of Cassidy. Neat little town. If you ever had any question whether or not small town America is alive and well, you need to fly a small airplane over the middle of the country. Pretty neat. So our next step is from Stillwater to Ardmore, Oklahoma. So now we've gotten to Stillwater. There is some of the northern tailings of the front that came through, however it has preceded us. So there's a good opportunity. If we make Ardmore, we can also slide into Fort Worth, Texas, because even though there's a lot of clouds out there, there are high ceilings, very good VFR weather, not a problem. There were a couple little clouds coming into the Ponca City, Stillwater area, just some rain shafts that we were able to go around. Where they parked us here at Stillwater, there was I can't really say any good things about Stillwater on this trip. The FBO was kind of minimal. It's, I guess, the city FBO. They parked us out in the boonies here. Not their fault. The airport's going under a bunch of construction, so hopefully there'll be some good things going. So the tower put us over here. Fuel truck had to come get us. Not a problem. And then we headed out. A lot of corporate traffic, a lot of regional airliner traffic. So Stillwater is a happening place. That being said, the Tower were great to us. Everybody we talked with were great to us. It's just that we were, it was a little austere. There's one of the rain shafts way out there you can see. And those were so easy to just kind of drive around. Ceiling is good and high. Scattered clouds, not a problem. And yeah, we had 7,400 feet, runway 17. We took off, had to taxi 2 on the parallel, across the diagonal active runway, or other runway. So just kind of trucked on out. I always use all the runway anytime I can. That's just what I do. I've had some folks say that takes a long time, but runway behind you is no good, so that's just what I do. There's another, looks like another rain shaft way out there, so we're mindful of that. We're painting that on our ForeFlight, but it's very, we can see all that stuff 30, 40 miles before we even get to it. And it's actually, at this point in time, the precip, or the pockets of precip, are very few and far between, and actually it's just in this particular area of Oklahoma, we had a couple of them we had to kind of drive around. But all in all, very good visibility. And all that stuff there in front of us that looks ugly, we're actually not even going there. We're going off to the west, and we're going to go behind it. So it works out very well. You can see the wheel spinning, the right wheel spinning there. So that one I didn't have my foot rubbing on the brake at all. That's what you normally want to see. You want to see it spin a little bit. Here's a ramp at Stillwater. A lot of new construction. University has their flight school there. You can see that there's just like a lot of nothing in front of you, and that's all new construction. All that new ramp area is new construction, probably for the regional carriers. Lots of spots, lots of new ramp space. Just a lot of things going on. It's you kind of hate to see some of the old stuff going away, but then again, that means that aviation is alive and well in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So it's kind of neat to see. So that's what's going on there. And just climbing out of there, you can see our visibility is actually quite good. The university, Oklahoma State University there in Stillwater, pretty much consumes the majority of the town. If you get a chance to go through Stillwater, it's a neat town. Eskimo Joe's, good place to go get a burger and a beer. But really kind of a neat town. You can see now that I'm kind of getting, it appears that I'm unstable. I'm getting bounced around. So as this front had gone through, now we've got some unstable air. Again, the wind up at higher levels is harder on our nose. So I'm going to stay a little bit lower and keep away from the turbulence, and then also try to keep my headwind to a minimum. There's the university off to the left. Really pretty campus when you get down to it. As we get into Oklahoma, again, you can see, I hate using the word again. I guess I shouldn't use it anymore. I'm trying not to use it anymore. I've been trying, but not good. The topography is a whole lot different. Not the big ranch or cattle operations. More kind of unmolested area, more virgin area, I guess you'd call it. But different kind of crops, different kind of industries and whatnot. So the area we're going through, smaller farms, smaller kind of ag type stuff. We're getting into more areas that have small manufacturing, things of that nature. So you don't see the big monster farms and flatness. Again, it's kind of hilly in Oklahoma. A lot of people think it's flat from the old cowboy movies, I guess. But this is quite a kind of a rolling topography in this area here. Rolling hills, kind of pretty. Lots of trees. So just a different part of the country. Very, very beautiful. A lot of neat stuff out there. A lot of small towns. A lot of neat things to look at on the ground. Fuel gauge bouncing around in the middle. That piece of coat hanger, that's my fuel gauge. That tells me how much gas I have. I'm using my clock or my watch or my timer. This is coming into Ardmore. This is going to be the terminus. You can see off to the right there is some weather out there, but it's pretty good ceiling. Late in the day, we figured, hey, we can zip in here, in and out, and get out of here real quick. Hey fans, so we started off yesterday in Ames, Iowa. We got as far as Ardmore, Oklahoma. We had one last start to do, and then it was hot. The engine was hot. It's an ornery little thing. It's a Lycoming with two Scintilla magnetos that have no impulse couplings, so it didn't really want to start. It was warm and all that. As a result, I got stuck in Ardmore, Oklahoma. We had 70 miles to go after coming all the way from Ames, Iowa. So right now we're waiting for weather to clear. The ceiling is about 400 feet. Weather's supposed to clear here this afternoon. So sitting in the terminal, which is a fabulous terminal here, the Line Shack, and they've got a restaurant on the field too. So Jake's Joint. So that's our story right now. We're waiting for weather to clear, and that's what's going on. Anyway, we'll let you know, see how it goes. Again, we'll have some more video footage of taking off out of here, and we'll see how long my GoPros last. But that's it from this end. We'll see you in a bit.
2 hours later.
So if you're ever stuck in an airport and you're wondering, man, this stinks. I did about 600 miles yesterday in a little Aeronca. I'm 70 miles from home. I spent the night here. It's a little too far to drive for someone to come get me. I'm sitting here reading magazines, everything else. And you know what? There's no sense worrying about it. There's no fire. I don't have to get home tomorrow. I don't have to get home today. I'll get home when I get home. And it's raining. So, hey, that's not all bad. It ain't snowing.
5 hours later.
So finally, the second day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that, we were able to get acceptable VFR weather. So the front came through, ugly, lots of rain and all that. We knew it was coming through. I saw that last night, but it was actually VFR adequate enough the night before that I could kind of sneak in, so to speak, but still have ample, healthy VFR weather to get back to Fort Worth. However, it wasn't to be. So ended up heading out, and I had to wait till about 3 o'clock for the weather to clear. The weather down at the weather down in Fort Worth, as we're speaking, as we're launching here, is very good. We're going to be taking off on the north-south runway there at Ardmore, 5,400 feet, runway 17. So the weather is definitely clear in Fort Worth now as we're taxiing out. It's slowly getting nicer for us. There's the inside of Jake's Joint. That's quite the place to go. Weekdays only. Don't expect to do anything on the weekends, but definitely worth a stop. Good chow, very nice. On serve the stuff on china and silverware. Very nice place to drop in. So definitely, I would definitely recommend that if you're flying in, GA, corporate, whatever. Super folks, really nice place. Very well done. So we're going to be taking off from Ardmore. Ardmore, kind of interesting. It was a B-17 base in World War II. Then it was actually activated again during the Cold War. It was a transportation base. So we're heading out on 17, going off in the Alpha 1 taxiway, and we're going to use it all. We didn't go all the way down to the diagonal and pick up the displaced threshold, but we figured we should be able to get this thing off at 5,400 feet. So that's what's going on there. The visibility, it doesn't look that great. It looks a lot better in real life, but the camera doesn't really do it justice. It was quite good. We had definitely good ceilings, adequate for what we were doing. We had 70 miles, so we were knowing that it was going to be nothing but improving. Even now at the airport, there's the sun's kind of peeking through, so it was kind of nice. You can see I've got a little bit of a crab going, so again, the frontal passage, still we're getting some wind kind of from the west. It's kind of helped me a little bit, but the turbulence is just knocking me around, so it was kind of interesting getting out of there. But got a very big deluge. I would assume several inches of rain that day. Kind of neat. Ardmore has a pretty active history. This is the big airport. They've got a downtown airport. This is the ADM. As I said, in the 50s, it was activated for the Air Force Transportation Command, or the Military Airlift Command. In years past, it's since been used for breaking airliners down, scrapping them, and then now there's a customizing shop, a completion center that is going great guns, doing a great job, great work up there, so it's kind of neat to see. And we're in Oklahoma, so we're heading out of Oklahoma, smaller ranches, different places like this. This is kind of neat. This is called Tucker's Tower on Lake Murray, just south of Ardmore. Originally built as a governor's residence, and now it's part of the Lake Murray State Park, so kind of cool. You can drive out there, walk up, check out the observation tower. But Lake Murray is a very, very nice park. Check it out. So a lot of nice boating, things of that nature. Here we're kind of scanning as we're coming along, checking out the panorama. Still doing about 60 knots. This is coming over the town of Marietta, Oklahoma. Originally had some manufacturing, and actually had a Keebler cookie company there, but it's since left. Had some other manufacturing, light manufacturing, but just kind of a nice little town. We actually, when we're on the road, we stop in there. There's a couple of great places to get some meals on the road. Not too far off the highway, so kind of a neat little place. This is the Red River. This is the border between Texas and Oklahoma. So anytime us Texans cross the river, we just kind of feel that, hey, we're home. So that's the Red River. You can see why they call it red, all the silt and all that, but really kind of cool. So now it's just nothing but downhill, heading back to the house. We're coming up on the Gainesville Airport. It's, in fact, when you are doing your approaches into Gainesville, you actually go over the Red River, slide into Oklahoma a little bit. It's that close to Oklahoma. So we're coming up into the Gainesville Airport area. Lots of hay out there. This is cattle country. There we are, skirting down the west side of Gainesville Airport. Just a untowered, uncontrolled field. Moseying on down, staying away from the active pattern. Hey guys, so this is if you notice, I'm wearing a different colored shirt. This is day 3, the morning after day 2. The first day we were able to go from Ames, Iowa to Marysville to Emporia, Kansas, to Stillwater, Oklahoma, to Ardmore, Oklahoma. So the very southern edge of Oklahoma. Almost made it into Texas. We're about 60 miles away, 60, 70 miles away from here now. It was a pretty uneventful flight, pretty easy going. The only reason we stopped in Ardmore, we were able to skirt the front, kind of slide down the back of the front. Had good visibility, but after 9 hours or so, the engine said, you know what, I'm too hot, I don't want to restart. So we had a devil of a time trying to prop start it again. No impulse couplings, no electrical system, and I said the heck with it. Just went to the hotel. There's no rush, there's no fire, so I just decided to take the night off and had a nice meal, got a shower, and hit it the next morning. And when we did, it was raining. So we stayed in the, I ended up staying in the FBO there at Ardmore, Jake's Joint, and the Flightline folks. Fabulous folks. If you ever have to do any business, Ardmore ADM is a great place to stop. Really first class. Nice little restaurant open there during the week at lunchtime. So it was a good time. It was a really good decision. So what did we end up doing? We ended up going 600 nautical miles, VFR, daytime, with no electrical system, no impulse couplings, no starter, nothing. How do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. Just think of it as 30-mile trip times 20. So when I left Ames, Iowa, I thought, well, if I make it 30 miles, I'm good. We'll just slowly head on down there. And we trucked on down. As I said, we made it almost all the way, short of an ornery old antique engine. The trick to that is, again, we were VFR, we're over clear areas, we always made sure we were in good shape. I tried going to higher altitude, it really wasn't helping me as far as winds aloft. The best I could do was 60 knots. I was down at 55 knots, 56 knots. We basically had 10 or 15 knots on the nose with a big front coming through, pushing me the whole time. So I really wasn't able to make any good headway or good speed over the ground. So just kind of sit and wait and chug along. As far as navigation, so now I don't have a six-pack. I don't have an electrical system. I don't have any charging capability. I don't have G1000. I don't have G5s. I don't have any of that stuff. So my primary navigation was I used for this mission. I had my ForeFlight. I've got my ForeFlight on both my iPad and my phone. I used my ForeFlight on my phone as my prime nav, with my iPad as second nav. The reason I used the iPad as second nav was it uses more power. So this uses a lot less power. I figured I was going to be in the airplane for at least 10 hours. So use this, and then I booted it up with a storage battery. This is 100,000. I had two of these, so this is kind of what I used to keep it going. Made sure we didn't run out of any power. And the entire time, the iPad was in reserve at 100%. So we had that. Third backup was paper maps. So we were pretty much chugging along with all that. We had a handheld radio with a little rubber ducky antenna on it. Is good for talking to. We went into some Class D airspace. We went into Ardmore. We went into Stillwater. The best you can hope for is about 7 miles out to get your AWAS and to get some of the other stuff, and then actually talk to the tower. Really helped. We tried to help the tower out as much as possible. We told them we were a non-electric airplane, and that was real important because we had some folks that said they were painting us on ADS-B. There's no way they could paint us on ADS-B because we had no Mode C. We had no ADS-B, we had no radios, blah, 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 blah. So then we just told them we're a slow yellow airplane, keep an eye out for us. So that helped the towers out greatly. They were very, very cool with that. Very helpful. They had no problem. Again, we had a handheld radio. It was, on a good day, they're not that great. It was not wired into an airframe mounted antenna, so as a result, it was kind of minimum range, 5 to 7 miles on a good day. So that's what we did. Total time was about 10.5 hours. We ended up going through 40 gallons of gas, and this thing uses oil, I think 2 quarts of oil. We ended up putting in it 2 full quarts of oil. It only runs at 3.5 quarts. So that's what the prior owners indicated they run it at. So we did that. So it worked out real well. Nice VFR trip, 600 nautical miles. As I said, no electric system, no starter, no impulse couplings, hand propping, and every time we hand prop, we had the tail tied down. One of the things you also see is the fact that we didn't have any photos of it landing or any video of it landing because our GoPros would only last so long. So we were able to get the takeoffs, and then after about an hour they'd poop out. So we weren't able to get the landings on all this stuff. But that's where we are right now. It was a great trip. Do it if you have a chance to do something like this. Move a little airplane. Again, don't think of it as a big trip. Think of it as a bunch of little trips, and it worked out great. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. If you got any squawks or anything you see that you thought were kind of weird, or you had some questions about it. This is a 1939, pardon the door slamming, 1939 Aeronca Chief, what they call a pre-war Chief. It has it's a 65, I think it's a 65 LC. Pardon me, I don't know what it is exactly. I forget what it is. It's got a Lycoming engine, long story short. Yeah, I think it's an LA, which means it's a Lycoming engine, otherwise it'd be a CA. So 65 horse, wooden propeller, mechanical brakes. Kind of a blast from the past, kind of fun. And who says you can't go anywhere in a slow airplane? So we did 600 miles. It was up in Iowa, and now it's down in Texas with its new owner. So that's it. Rats out. You guys go flying. Have a great one. Be safe. And there's nothing wrong with going slow.